Magandang araw! Ako pala si Divine Grace G. Pagalan, isa sa mga mag-uulat sa kapilgirang kasaysayan ng Filibusterismo. Bago tayo magsimula, ay alamin muna natin kung ano ang kahulugan ng Filibusterismo o ang paghahari ng kasakiman. Ang salitang pilibustero sa wikang Tagalog na ang filibusterismo ay nangangahulugang naghahanda sa isang revolusyon na kapareha sa isang karakter ng nobela na si Simon. Alam naman natin na si Simon at si Ibarra ay isa. Bumalik si Simon sa Pilipinas galing ibang bansa upang maghasik ng lagim at magsagawa ng revolusyon para makapaghiganti. Ang nobelang Filibusterismo na sa Tagalog ay ang filibusterismo at sa wikang Ingles ay The Reign of the Greed ay ang pangalawang nobelang isinulat ng pambansang bayani ng Pilipinas na si Jose Rizal, na kanyang buong pusong inialay sa tatlong martir na lalong kilala sa bansag na Gumburza o Gomez, Burgos at Zamora. Ito ang karugtong o sequel sa Noli Me Tangere. Ngayon naman ay dadako tayo sa timeline ng pagsulat ng Filibusterismo. Sinimula ni Rizal na isulat ang akda noong Oktubre 1887 habang nagpa-practice ng medisina sa Calamba. Dahil sa impact ng paggawa ni Rizal sa nobelang Noli Me Tangere ay umalis si Rizal sa Pilipinas at dahil na rin sa pag-udyok ni General Emilio Terrero, sumunod naman si Rizal sa sinabi sa kanya. Hindi rin niya nais na maipalagay pa sa panganib ang kanyang pamilya at mga kaibigan. Nagtungo siya sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa sa Asia, Amerika at sa Europa. Noong 1888 ay pumunta si Rizal sa London at gumawa siya ng maraming pagbabago sa banghay ng nobela at pinagbuti niya ang ilang mga kabanata. Ipinagpatuloy ni Rizal ang pagtatrabaho sa kanyang manuskrito habang naninirahan sa Paris, Madrid at Bruselas. Tinapos at nakumpleto niya ito noong Marso 29, 1891 sa Biarritz, France. Napagdesisyonan ni Rizal na pumunta sa Ghent, Belgium para ipalimbag ang nobela. Dahil nalaman niya na higit na mas mura ang pagpapalimbag sa Ghent, Belgium. Nakahanap si Rizal ng isang publisher na tumatanggap ng paunti-unting bayad. Sa kasamang palad ay naubusan na ng salapi si Rizal na ipangbabayad sa publisher. Naisip niyang itigil ito at sunugin. Subalit ay may dumating na tulong galing kay Valentin Ventura na siyang nagpahiram kay Rizal at noong September 1891 ay napalimbag ang nobelang Filibusterismo sa F. Mayer Van Loo Press.
After Miss Divine reported the timeline for the writing of Filibusterismo, now we're gonna proceed to the kalagayan ni Rizal while he was writing his Filibuster. While he was writing, nagdanas si Rizal ng paghihirap. Rizal writings, particularly his novel El Filibusterismo, were highly critical of that Spanish colonial government and its abuses. As a result, he became a target of surveillance and persecution by the Spanish authorities, who saw his work as a threat to their rule. Next is, si Rizal ay nagtitipid ng mabuti. Rizal faced financial difficulties while he was writing the novel. He had limited means to support himself and his family, which made it challenging to sustain his writing and publishing endeavors. Rizal relied on the support of his friends and family to continue his literary work. Next is, si Rizal ay nagsanla ng alahas. Ang paglilimbag ng isang aklat, lalo na ang isang mahalagang nobela tulad ng Filibusterismo, ay nangangailangan ng malaking halaga ng pera upang matustusan ang mga gastusin para sa pagsulat, pag-edit, pagdisenyo ng pabalat at paglilimbag ng kopya. Maaaring nagdesisyon si Rizal na magsanla ng ilang alahas upang makakuha ng kinakailangang pondo. Next is pagpapakasal sa iba ni Leonor Rivera. In the novel, Paulita Gomez represents Leonor Rivera, while Juanito Pilaes represents Jose Rizal himself. When Rivera married Keeping, Rizal's personal anguish and heartbreak were reflected in the story. In the novel, Juanito Pilaes experiences great sorrow and heartache when he learns about the marriage of Maria Clara, who represents Leonor, to a Spanish officer, Linares. Lastly, the persecution of the parents and siblings of Rizal. As a prominent figure of the Philippines nationalist movement, Rizal was under constant surveillance by the Spanish authorities. They closely monitored his activities, writings, and association. As a result, Rizal's family, particularly his parents and siblings, became target of persecution and harassment. Next, we're gonna tackle naman yung mga taong tumulong kay Rizal while he was writing El Filibusterismo. Number one is Jose Alejandrino. He helped Rizal by proofreading. One of the ways Alejandrino helped Rizal was by assisting in the correction of errors in the manuscript of El Filibusterismo. Before it was published in Ghent, Belgium in 1891, Rizal and Alejandrino collaborated closely during this process, going through that text and making revisions to ensure accuracy and clarity. Next is Jose Maria Basa. He helped Rizal by financial assistance. Basa, who was residing in Hong Kong at the time, became a close friend and mentor to Rizal. One of the key ways in which Basa assisted Rizal was by providing financial assistance. Rizal faced financial constraint while working on El Filibusterismo, and Basa helped alleviate those difficulties by providing fund for the publication of the novel. Basa's financial support enabled Rizal to process with the printing and distribution of his work, ensuring that it would reach a wider audience. Lastly, Valentin Ventura. He helped Rizal by sending him money to finish publication of the novel. When everything seemed lost, help came from an unexpected source. Valentin Ventura heard of Rizal's predicament and immediately sent the amount needed to finish the publications of the novel. Now we will now proceed sa pinagmulan ng tema ng nobela ni Rizal na El Filibusterismo. Number one is yung pangyayari sa Calamba. Dito pinahihirapan ang kanyang pamilya sa Calamba. Hinuli ang kanyang ina, hinihigpitan ang kanyang pamilya at kinukumpiska ng mga praile ang kanilang mga lupain. Next is dahil kay Leonor Rivera. Dating niyang kasintahan. Ayaw ng ina ni Leonor pakasalan ng anak ni Rizal dahil sila ay magpinsan at erehe si Rizal kaya't pinakasalan na lamang ni Leonor si Henry Keeping, subalit namatay rin si Leonor matapos ang 2 taon. Next is yung dahil sa kawalan ng pagkakaisa ng mga tao. One of the underlying themes of El Filibusterismo is the idea of fragmented Filipino society. Rizal depicted the division among Filipinos, including the elite class, the educated middle class, the working class, and the indigenous population. These divisions prevented the unity and hindered collective action against the oppressive colonial regime. And that would be all for the historical background of the writing of El Filibusterismo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Geraldine Calanda, and together with my partner, Darlene Maca, we're going to discuss the summary of the El Filibusterismo. We all know that the El Filibusterismo is the sequel of the novel Noli Me Tangere, which was dedicated to the 3 martyred priests, Father Gomez, Father Burgos, and Father Zamora, or the Gomburza. It was authored by Dr. Cerizal and was published in Belgium on September 18, 1891. El Filibusterismo picks up the threads of the narratives where Noli leaves off, with the return of Ibarra under an assumed name Simon, who is an affluent jeweler, tall, lean, sinewy, very deeply tanned, and in ingenious disguise. On board on dingy steamer Tabo and en route to San Diego on the Pasig River. He is the subject of conversations on the lower deck and the center of attention on the upper deck. The 13 years away from his country has transformed him into an exotic-looking, mysterious personality. Upon his return to the Philippines after those years, he radiates great influence and he became the indispensable consultant and the closest friend of the Governor-General. No one suspects that Simon is the fugitive Ibarra because everyone thought that Crisostomo had been killed by the Guardia Civil at Laguna de Bay. Only Basilio, a young man pursuing medical career, son of demented Sisa, comes to know his secret when once he visited his mother's grave in the woods of Ibarras. Simon tries to win Basilio to his side as he explains his grand plans, which is to take revenge against the Spanish officials and to take Maria Clara or to rescue Maria Clara from the convent. He would use his wealth and influence to encourage corruption, decadence, more oppressive policies in the high circles of government, and as a result, he would drive the people to become despair and to become more infuriated, which primarily become a fulfillment of his vow of vengeance. The people's freedom in the process came only as a second purpose. Planning to stage a revolution, he smuggles arms and looks for followers, mainly from the exploited and abused natives. He successfully recruited Basilio and also made alliances to the revolutionary group of Cabezang Tales, a former cabeza de barangay, who suffered maltreatments from the hand of the friars. Twice Simon attempted to ignite the fire of rebellion, but he fails. On the first occasion, the planned revolt was not carried out because the news of Maria Clara's death reached him just as he is about to give the signal to the coordinated attack on the city. His second attempt was made some months later. At the venue of the wedding reception of Bonito Pelaez and Paulita Gomez, Simon created a lamp which contained a homemade bomb enough to kill the invited guests, primarily the friars and the government officials. A big explosion shall be started by the gift he would give to the newlywed, a kerosene lamp with explosive. If the lamp flickers and someone turns the wick, it will result into a big explosion which becomes the signal to the revolutionary troops to attack all the government buildings in Manila.
His second attempt is thwarted by Sagani, the young poet who snatches the lamp. During the reception, Simon gives his gift to the newlyweds. Before hurriedly leaving the venue, he leaves a piece of mysterious paper bearing the message, "You will die tonight," signed by Juan Crisostomo Ibarra. As the wedding feast begins, the poet Isagani, who has been rejected by Paulita Gomez because of his liberal ideas, is standing outside the house, sorrowfully watching the merriment inside. Basilio, his friend, warns him to go away because the lighted lamp will soon to blow up. Upon hearing the horrible secret of the lamp, Isagani realizes that his beloved Paulita is in grave danger. To save her life, he rushes into the house, seizes the lighted lamp, and throws it into the river where it explodes. Meanwhile, a parchment prophesying doom is passed around among the wedding guests, and Simon is pinpointed as the instigator of the scheme. The signature identifies Simon as Ibarra. Simon's revolutionary plot was discovered and he is hunted by the Guardia Civil. He managed to escape, but he is seriously wounded. Carrying his jewelry chest, he finds shelter in the home of Padre Florentino. Learning of his presence in the house of the priest, the Lieutenant Perez of the Guardia Civil informed Padre Florentino that he will come in the evening to arrest Simon. Simon then takes poison that he would not be caught alive. As he is dying, he confesses to Father Florentino his true identity and his plan of revenge through bloody revolution. After the emotional and agonizing confession of the dying man, the priest absolves the dying man from his sins, saying, "God will forgive you, Senior Simon. He knows that we are fallible. He has seen that you have suffered. He has frustrated your plans one by one, first by the death of Maria Clara, then by a lack of preparation, then in some mysterious way. Let us bow to his will and render him thanks." The story ends with the priest throwing Simon's treasures into the sea so that they would not be used by the greedy. The priest hopes that when the right time comes, they would be recovered and used only for the good.
Isang kapita-pitagang araw sa ating lahat. Ngayon ating talakayin ang El Filibusterismo, analysis relating to the contemporary issues of the Philippines. Kabilang sa isyong panlipunan ay ang diskriminasyon at kahirapan. Una nating talakayin ang diskriminasyon or discrimination in English. And now let's define what is discrimination. Discrimination is an unfair or prejudicial treatment of people and groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. Isa sa mga halimbawa ng diskriminasyon ay ang racial discrimination. Alam naman nating lahat na ang racial discrimination ay naranasan noon at nararanasan pa rin natin ngayon sa kasalukuyan. Sa El Filibusterismo, inakalang hangal si Basilio dahil sa kanyang pagiging Pilipino maliban sa katotohanang isa siyang marangal na guro. Maihahalin tulad natin ito sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon, kagaya na lamang ng Asian racist kung saan mababa ang pagtingin ng mga Amerikano sa mga Asian people. Ngayon tayo ay dumako sa isa pang isyong panlipunan na kinakaharap din ng ating bansa sa kasalukuyan, ang kahirapan or poverty. Ano nga ba ang kahirapan? Poverty is a state or condition in which people or communities lack the financial resources and essentials for a minimum standard living. Example: there is an inadequate number of available good jobs and a lack of investment in education that leads to such a high inequality of income. In El Filibusterismo Chapter 7, where Huli prepares to leave Tandangselo to begin her new employment for the payment of the money loaned for her father. This represents the struggle of the Filipinos in the present to find a decent job to sustain the needs of their families. And that would be all. Thank you for listening. I am Amal Her Said, your tender loving care. Hey!
We all know that Rizal's main source of inspiration for writing El Filibusterismo was the Gumburza debt. At the time, the corrupt administration, particularly the friars, caused a lot of injustices in the Philippines, especially to the Filipino people. There is a specific chapter or character in his book El Filibusterismo that describes the atrocities they endured and how corrupt the friars are. Son of Tandangselo, Cabezang Tales is a very diligent worker on his sugarcane field. His life in some way improved as a result. Together with his family, Cabezang Tales led a better life, and he even wished to send his children to college. Everything changed though when the friars' greed took over and they started raising taxes on the farm, eventually acquiring it from Cabezang Tales and becoming its owners. Although he presented it to the court, but he ultimately lost. In fact, he was put in jail, which made their lives a misery. So, the invaders, especially the friars, were the ones who caused the people to suffer greatly. They are accountable for the injustices and corruption depicted in the book. On the other hand, injustices and corruption still exist in our contemporary society, and these two continue to stand in the way of building a progressive and peaceful community. A famous line from the song Tatsulok by Bamboo, hanggat marami ang lugmok sa kahirapan at ang hustisya ay para lang sa mayaman, habang may tatsulok at sila ang nasa tuktok, di matatapos itong gulo, tells us that our country's justice system has failed to provide fairness and equality to its people because it consistently gives those with wealth, influence, and power the advantage. The effects of these injustices are likely to be felt more by those who are less fortunate in life. They are the ones who are held accountable for the crimes that the wealthy and powerful committed. Second, one of the key causes of nations' high poverty rate and injustices is corruption. In our country, corrupt officials truly embody the term black sheep. They were the ones being served by the people rather than serving people. People suffered immensely as a result of their selfishness and greed. They acquire wealth and make use of their position to pamper themselves with goods, cash, and services that are not intended for them. These do not help our country as a whole. Thus, we must keep in mind that as the next generation of youth, we are the country's future. According to a quote from Rizal, it is a useless life that is not consecrated to a great ideal. It is like a stone wasted on the field without becoming part of any edifice. This means that we should not only be concerned with improving ourselves, but also with acting as catalysts of a positive change.
To sum up all of the topics that we have discussed, El Filibusterismo was written by the national hero of the Philippines, named Jose Rizal, and it is first published in 1891 in Ghent, Belgium. It is Rizal's second novel and the sequel to his first novel, Noli Me Tangere. Rizal dedicates the novel to the three martyred priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, whose deaths left an indelible mark in his mind. His two novels were a part of the Filipino propaganda movement, which sought greater autonomy from Spain, if not independence. It exposes the real picture of Filipino society at the hands of the Spanish authorities. In Noli, there is aspiration, beauty, romance, and mercy. In Fili, all the reader will feel is bitterness, hatred, and antipathy. The romance and aspirations are gone. Even the character's personality seems to have undergone radical change. This is how different Rizal's second novel is. Considering that both were written by the same author, the plots are poles apart. The story in El Filibusterismo revolves around its main character, Simon, who is an affluent jeweler. Simon is actually Crisostomo Ibarra of Denoli, whom everyone thought had been killed by the Guardia Civil at the Laguna Bay. He had in fact escaped, fled to Cuba, become wealthy, and made connections with influential Spanish officials. Upon his return to the Philippines after many years, he becomes very influential as the Governor-General, who owns so much to him, consults him in making decisions. The El Filibusterismo addresses socio-political issues of great importance to the movement, namely the abuse, poverty, injustices, corruption, and exploitation of government officials and discrimination. Also, the hypocrisy of the members of the Spanish Catholic clergy, superstitions disguising as religious faith, the need for reform in educational system, and the pretenses of some social climbing Filipinos and Spaniards. The novels resulted in Rizal's exile to Hong Kong and later his execution by firing squad in 1896 at the age of 35. This novel tells us how cruel and how purely evil the Spaniards was. Nevertheless, it also tackles the bravery of the Filipino community. It shows the unimagined bravery of our countrymen on fighting the greediness and cruelty of the Spaniards.